The second component is de-essentializing anti-racism. This has to do with the issues of socioeconomic class, to think about racism. So the question to pose is, are all settlers equal? So anti-racism also privileges race over class in analyzing and critiquing social injustices. Okay. But then neo-Marxist critics like Cole, Dardier, and Torres, they argue that the unequal relations of power should be analyzed and discussed not only from the perspective of race and racism, but also from the perspective of socioeconomic class. Okay. So we need to pay more attention to socioeconomic issues that illuminates the importance of de-essentializing racism. And so all settlers of Canada have sought economic opportunities at the expense of Aboriginal people's lives, land, culture, language, and rights. And my narrative clearly shows individual expressions of racial prejudice as well as racial and linguistic biases, and also my taxi driver's experience, that third-generation Chinese Canadian immigrant, their experiences of racialization and racism resonates that. But the underlying resentment is also caused by capitalist and neoliberal effects on economic gaps between the rich and poor, which threatens working-class white people. The comments in the documentary also direct our attention to social class as a major cause of social tensions. And it's not just the social class, but also the government unregulated policies of offshore investment. So we need to now look at issues of language too, right? So let's take a look at this exclusion of Mandarin-speaking students from Mandarin immersion education that became a hot topic several years ago in Vancouver School Board. So I sort of critically reflected on this issue. I thought, first of all, it was very strange to exclude Mandarin-speaking immigrant students from this Mandarin immersion education. If they included them, that would be a very good opportunities for Mandarin-speaking children to become really bilingual and biliterate. And that kind of program is similar to immersion programs in Edmonton and maybe in Calgary and other areas in Alberta. And also many dual language or two-way immersion programs in the United States are based on that philosophy. But it was very strange for me to exclude Mandarin-speaking students from this immersion program. But then when I thought about this socioeconomic issue, I raised several questions. So does this exclusion simply reflect a legacy of long-standing anti-Chinese racism? Or does it also reflect an economic conflict between white and whitened settlers and the wealthy Chinese newcomers? By the way, I have to mention that some of the parents who argued against including Mandarin-speaking immigrant students in this program were ethnic Chinese. So So that was a very interesting aspect of it. And two more questions. What are the implications of providing an enrichment education to the economically privileged, but who are also racially, culturally, and linguistically marginalized? Wouldn't it be more necessary to offer bilingual immersion education for economically disadvantaged immigrant students, who tend to have poorer academic achievement compared to Mandarin-speaking students in our geographical area, including Filipino students, Vietnamese students, and so forth? Well, the argument can be these wealthy Chinese immigrant parents have economic means to send their children to heritage schools on Saturdays, and so therefore they don't need public education to maintain their heritage language. But is that a good argument? I don't know. I don't have an answer. This is something that we need to think about. So de-essentializing anti-racism allows us to pay greater attention to the economic dimension of racialized experiences